I'm Manfred Kohl. I'm co-catalyst of our Network for Integrity and Anti-Corruption. And my assignment is at this conference to interview 3 people to share how we can deal with corruption and evil in this world from a personal response. I interviewed our friend from India, Reverend Arpit, a friend of ours, and he will share how he started an organization in India to deal with integrity and anti-corruption. Then I have a person who served many years in Eastern Europe. She's a lady, it's Dr. Tanya van Horne, and she will share with us how she dealt with evil in Eastern Europe. 2 countries she will mention where she had a personal involvement and how she dealt with it. And I would like to ask Arpit just to share what has been done and what effect does it have, and how can we continue to support the church in India.
Thank you, Dr. Manfred. It's always a privilege speaking to you and getting together with you. Thank you for your contribution to what we started in India. So Operation Nehemiah is a movement that started in with an event where we had a lot of church leaders come in, and we somehow miraculously got about 50 of the topmost church leaders of the Indian church across various denominations coming together to discuss an issue which had to do with financial integrity. And it was interesting that nobody asked the question whether we have a problem, because everybody recognized that there was a problem, and therefore they were happy to come and contribute to a conversation on that. It's been a long journey since we started that, and Dr. Manfred has been part of that journey as well. One of the things that we did do was put together a declaration, which is called the Operation Nehemiah Declaration Against Corruption. Now, one may ask, what happens when we put together declarations like this? Does it make a difference? Does it make any impact? But I think what we have seen over the years, even as we have continued to have conversations with the different church leaders, is that in their hearts, there is a quickening when we have a conversation. I think the biggest contribution that we made was to raise the issue and put it on the table as something that needs to be addressed. Because we talk a lot about evangelism, we talk a lot about feeding hungry mouths, we talk a lot about justice issues, and say something like Bible translation, but we rarely talk about the issue of the problem of integrity in the church. So I think what we managed to do was put that on the table as a conversation point.
I think it would be very helpful if you share a little bit about the present situation that the church is facing. I also like to tell all the readers, if they are interested in that declaration or get a copy of it, that you would be able to provide that.
Absolutely, sure. We'll be happy to share that. Yes, I think one of the saddest things that has happened in recent times is that a mainline denomination leader is currently in jail, which is a matter of heartbreak for all of us. Now, typically in mainline churches, we celebrate the move of God in the local church, but we tend to ignore what's happening at a governance level because it's too big a problem. It seems to be too big a problem for us to solve or to even address. But when it comes to moments like the ones that we are having right now, it is something that just begs our attention for a response. And so we are praying about how should we respond to this situation. What has happened is that a denominational leader has been accused of multiple counts of criminal activity, including misuse of money, abuse of power, and ill-gotten wealth for himself. And it's a really sad situation. And it's a reminder to us that God is concerned about this, and therefore he calls us to respond to this. And we ask him for his intervention in this process. How we have been slowly working around issues like this is to build relationships with churches and church leaders and to get our hands dirty with them, the way Nehemiah did. He solved a practical problem of building a wall, but at the same time, he also asked deeper spiritual questions of the whole people of Israel. And that is a methodology that we have been using to be able to wash the feet of the church leaders that we serve and to serve those institutions, to enable them in their movement towards their own vision. But at the same time, as we do that, we also ask the more difficult questions of financial integrity. And we've been really privileged to have friends that we have made in the church who have been willing to respond to our questions and to address the issues within their own organizations. So that's been our journey, Dr. Manfred.
I'd like to thank you for speaking so open and frank about the situation in India. And we all are challenged to pray for the church in India, for the leadership, and hopefully it will help to have a revival based on dealing with integrity. Thank you very much. I'd like to interview a dear lady who has been involved with her husband in ministry in Eastern Europe. Mrs. Tanya van Horne, tell us your experience in the Ukraine.
Thank you, Manfred. I'm actually going to share two stories, one from Ukraine and one from Moldova. As I was reflecting about these experiences across the years and the different contexts, I saw a common theme, which is the power of communities of integrity. So the implications of how we overcome corruption are always connected to the communities that we belong to. So for several years, we served on the faculty of a theological school in Ukraine. And we moved from Russia to take up our roles and had sent our belongings by train. When we went to the train station to get them from customs, the associate rector of the school was with us. The agents wanted a bribe to release our things. It would have been very simple to just give them a bribe and move on with the day. But instead, the rector patiently and humbly engaged with these agents. He was willing to sit with them as long as it took for them to go through all of our belongings. When it was clear that there was no bribe forthcoming, our things were released to us. So we had joined a community of integrity with leadership who understood that their actions mattered. The training that they were offering students and future missionaries needed to be lived out in a way that the school interacted with the government and their neighbors. So we learned from the example of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters how to engage with integrity in the way we did life going forward. The second example comes from our time in Moldova, where we were working in a university student ministry context. We had joined the staff of a Moldovan student ministry called the Community of Christian Students. The educational system was one of the most corrupt spaces in Moldova. Students were constantly faced with the pressure and the practice of paying their professors for grades. In this context, the leadership was committed to integrity, including following the immigration laws for foreign staff. For several years, we had no problem with the process, and then we had to work with a very corrupt official. For a whole year, he placed barriers to our residency because we would not pay a bribe. The situation escalated until we were charged with being in the country illegally and threatened with deportation. We went to court and eventually won the case. We were finally able to receive our residency, and not long after that, the laws were changed in Moldova to make the immigration process easier. It was impossible for us not to see the connections between the choices that we had to make and the ones that the students we work with made every single day. And who were the ones that were praying for and with us? It was their resilience and struggle for integrity that guided, informed, and shaped us. And I believe we were able to encourage them. We were in it together. Years later, we continue to see the fruits of these communities of integrity. Moldovan graduates serving in the same department that once blocked our visas seeking the good of their country, and living out their faith. And Ukrainian theologians and leaders sacrificially and prophetically continuing the work of integrity in their country, even today. There's a parable of Jesus in Mark chapter 13 that's traditionally read during the Advent season to remind us of the tension and the battle that we're in with the powers of darkness. It's the parable of the doorkeeper, where Jesus calls his disciples to be alert, to keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming. If he comes suddenly, he must not find you asleep. And that's a critically important posture for us. So may God bless this community of integrity as you stand and lead others.
And finally, I have a good friend in Bethlehem, the president of Bethlehem Bible College, Dr. Sara. In your country, there is so much evil. There's so much corruption. There's so much terrible things going on. How do you deal with that?
Well, thank you, Dr. Kohl. This is an important element for us as a Palestinian church who has been going under turmoil and injustice for so many years. On a personal level, I try personally to have a few people around me that they have the permission to ask me hard questions, including the board of my ministry, including the elders of my church, and my wife as well, to ask me about questions related to my own personal life and my own endeavors that I run myself. But on an organizational scale, we thought to really not just think of how we can be there serving or training our own local people. We thought about how can we be a prophetic voice in the midst of such culture and hard situation that's filled with injustice. So one of the things, for example, that we produced is a conference to invite Christian leaders locally and internationally to talk about how can we confront this injustice that the Palestinians or other nations, other people are going through, with sometimes the world being silent about it because of a reason or another. Whether it is a theological reason or interpretation of the scriptures reason, there are reasons that sometimes people justify, sadly, the injustice that has been committed towards a certain group of people in this globe. And in our particular context, we said, let's gather together a small gathering of people to discuss together. The gathering grew because more people wanted to really be being part of the discussion. How can we be a prophetic voice in the midst of such injustice, whether it is corrupt system, and the challenge we always have, we cannot only speak against the other, we have to always look at ourselves. We have to look around us, 360, not just towards the other, but as well towards our own people, and how can we prophetic voice, not just towards the other, and sometimes we call the enemy or the other side, but as well us, to see that we also have failed in certain areas, and the church need to be a prophetic voice towards this, in a gentle way and a scriptural way.
You're the president of Bethlehem Bible College, and you just started a program for peacemaking, inviting students from all over the world, including local people from Palestine, to talk about peacemaking. Tell us a couple sentences.
Well, we did start this as a result of our context. Again, it lacks a lot of peace thinking, peace doing, peacemaking. Thinking about not just the social justice, but as well seeing how God fits in this whole picture of where we are. So drawing from the scripture, drawing from other experiences of other nations and other people that dealt in the context where they are, in a pacifist way, in a way that does not promote violence, does not promote hatred towards the other, even towards the persecutor or those who kind of treat us in an unjust way. And put together an academic degree, a master's degree in peace and justice, together with other courses that doesn't need to be part of just a certain degree. And those students that come, they collaborate, learning from other experiences in other contexts, but at the same time from Palestinians who had felt the injustice, went through the injustice, yet dependent on the word of God and they're conscious not to treat the other as they were treated, rather come with a way, come with a reconciliation, speak to the enemy, speak to the others openly and in a dialogue, and trying to change on a grassroots level more than just political level.
I'd like to say thank you for your frank and open statement. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Kohl.